Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them.
Hi, my name is Gabby Ryan, and I am the most interesting person you've never heard of because I've dedicated my life to serving the community and supporting those who also choose to do the same. And I'm the biggest hockey fan that's ever come out of Florida.
Gabby Ryan, welcome to the most interesting person you've never heard of podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
And you're not just here because you have the coolest glasses I've ever seen in my entire life, but it doesn't hurt.
I always tell everyone looks great in cat eye glasses, and I won't rest until I start
You've
seeing
proven
more
it?
people rocking
You
the
think
cat
I
eye
would
glasses.
Let's go. Let me see. Let me try these. Okay, let's see.
I promise everyone looks stunning in them.
Okay, we're going to find out.
Dreamy. Honestly, everyone
What do you
needs a
think?
pair. Yes.
You can't see, though.
Yes.
Because you don't have your glass. Well, hello. Join us next week. They feel good. I can't wait to see what that looks like.
Looks stunning. Absolutely
Do
stunning.
you have several? I would look at you and guess you're a collector of glasses.
I had the red ones for many years, and then I recently decided to get new ones, and I've had a really fun time switching it up.
So you have more than one
to the
pair,
red ones.
but you always wear cat eye, and you're kind of always the red ones. Those are big glasses.
Thank you.
I think they're so cool.
Once I shaved my head, I wanted a face accessory.
When I saw you, though, met you the first time at that community neighborhood meeting, did you not have yellow ones?
I probably did. I
Those
have
were
really
cool.
I have really big
Yes.
pink, yellow tortoiseshell.
Yeah. But the lens was kind of a gold.
Oh, I was wearing the orange hearts.
Those were yes.
I had orange hearts. I love those ones because everything obviously looks gold and like sunshine when you're in them.
Well,
And
that's
so-
your world, Gabby. Come on. Anybody that meets you thinks that.
Early
let's be
spring,
honest.
definitely itching for that gold hue over the gray hue.
So you are the community programs coordinator for the city of Spokane.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Community what? Oh, you are the community programs coordinator for the city of Spokane.
Yes, in the Office of Neighborhood Services.
And then Office of Neighborhood Services. So what does that mean? It means that you're like the fun squad for the city. Are you not?
Yeah, I get to support the neighborhood councils through the programming that's needed in order for our neighborhood councils to thrive. And I do believe that I have a really, really fun job because I manage a community engagement grant program. So the neighborhoods get to come to the budget committee, which is a group of community members.
Well,
that I
that
get to
sounds
work with.
exciting right out of the bat. I mean, who doesn't want to spend a Tuesday night or wherever?
It's like a peer-reviewed committee where the
Okay.
neighborhoods get to come to other neighborhood leaders, and we review. They apply for community engagement grant funds, and the role of those funds within our neighborhood councils is the money is supposed to go to increasing awareness and participation in our neighborhood council system.
So there's a pot of money at the city for the neighborhoods to spend on fun things for that neighborhood.
Yeah. If it's bringing together community
not know
togetherness, I think so. Maybe if you didn't,
Like if I want to do a
notice-
bocce ball tournament,
yeah.
or I mean, is that what qualifies? What doesn't
Yeah.
qualify? Maybe that's more fun.
Well, having fun events, like I said, the main qualifications are it needs to raise awareness or increase participation in the neighborhood council system.
Oh, okay.
So we are in, I believe
What
we're in
na-
the Rockwood
We're in
neighborhood.
Rockwood, I
Yeah.
believe. Well, we are, I think, in Rockwood. We're right on the line between Rockwood and South Perry. I
Yeah.
think Southeast Boulevard is the line
Definitely.
between South Perry and Rockwood. So
Absolutely.
we are in Rockwood on this side of the street, I believe.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Rockwood Neighborhood Council holds a block party every year over at Hutton Elementary School. And so the funds from my program get to go towards paying for the games that kids get to play, marketing materials for that.
To get people to go.
And it can pay for some food and refreshments. So I think they did an ice cream party last year
What?
at their block
When is
party.
this?
Yeah, West
like,
Central does a movie
it's
night.
not
in the
fair
park.
for you to ask, but go check it somewhere. Where do we
Yeah.
check this stuff? Where do we find these things?
Well, I always recommend getting involved in your neighborhood council because they're the ones that are planning. So, in addition to just finding out about these events, our neighborhood councils could really use people who want to plan them.
Okay.
I think that you would think that people would be chomping at the bit to have fun and like want to plan fun events. But some neighborhoods could really use the help with residents who are like, I want to throw a block party, or I know a local band in town. I'd love for them to come and play a concert in our park.
Oh.
The Browns Edition Neighborhood
That's
Council.
a cool idea.
Yeah, in Coeur d'Alene Park, the Browns Edition Neighborhood Council for the last 27 years have been having concerts in the park on Thursday nights through the summer months.
No way.
And
I didn't know that.
yeah, they do. It's so lovely because they play in front of them.
The
pergola? The pagoda. I don't know what
is that. I should know what that is.
It's such an iconic structure in Coeur d'Alene Park, and so people come and bring blankets.
Gazebo.
And sit down. Yeah, gazebo. And the funds in my program help cover the cost of one of the bands that play.
No way.
Yeah, and some examples. They're not the only ones that do concerts in the park. Audubon Downriver neighborhood does concerts in the park.
That's where I grew up. Yeah.
Yeah, Bemis. They do music under the oaks.
My dad
and
went to grade
Hayes.
school.
Yeah.
In the 20s.
Absolutely. Just down the street in Manitou Cannon Hill, they do a fun block party in front of the Scoop. So
right
ice
on.
cream concert on the street. So that's a few examples.
So to do that, you go to your neighborhood council and you just say, hey, I want to do this event at a certain spot, and then you just apply to see what you can get.
Yeah, the neighborhood residents vote every year on what they want to see happen, and then the neighborhood councils apply to use those funds. So it's really fun to see the creativity that those neighborhood councils that they're exploring. Some of them partner together to combine their
resources.
Their allocations. Our neighborhoods get about $850, which doesn't seem like a lot. My program is $25,000 total, but we have 29 neighborhoods, and so it gets
$850 though.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is really, really fun. So what is a neighborhood council? How many of them are there, and why should people go check theirs out? When do they happen?
Yeah.
Because I saw you at one. That's where we met.
Yeah, we met at Balboa South Indian Trails.
Yep, that's right.
So our neighborhood council system has been around for 24 years here in this city of Spokane, a formalized neighborhood council system. Next year in 2025, we celebrate the 25th anniversary. Wow. So we're going to be doing a lot of intentional programming and opportunities to promote what the neighborhood councils do next year to celebrate the hard work that residents have put in. And so neighborhood council we have 29 of them. So if you live within the city of Spokane, you are represented by a neighborhood council, and they do vary in size. Our neighborhoods, just like our neighborhoods, vary in size. Yeah. So does the participation of those neighborhood councils. And what their goal is they are often playing kind of the middleman in addition to like what our office does. So we work alongside our neighborhood councils to listen to residents. So residents come to their neighborhood councils with concerns, questions, goals, anything that pertains that interests them.
Right.
And
something's building in the neighborhood. They want to know about it.
Something like traffic, development, housing, art, all of those things particularly interest residents and tend to get them involved. Things like graffiti or neighborhood beautification. Those are some examples of what get people involved and keep them involved, and the ways that our neighborhood councils are empowered to serve the residents and to work alongside the city to address those concerns. So residents will come in, business owners, community organizations can join the neighborhood council meetings and problem solve and understand more about the way that the city functions.
And educate what they're up to.
Mm-hmm. And get involved in activism. I mean, at its very base level, it is community engagement and activism. So people are feeling passionate about a certain topic. They come to their neighborhood council. The neighborhood council, alongside the Office of Neighborhood Services, we work to demystify what addressing what creative problem solving or intentional community engagement looks like. So how do we listen to the residents, work with the neighborhood councils to escalate those concerns to the city? So often if a neighborhood council has a concern, we, in the Office of Neighborhood Services, every staff member is assigned a certain number of neighborhood councils that they directly liaise to. So in addition to having a neighborhood services staff member and then your 2 city council representatives attending these meetings, we're going and sitting in these meetings. The neighborhood councils could meet monthly. A lot of them meet monthly. They're only required to meet 4 times a year. So some of them do meet quarterly. Some of them meet every other month. It just depends on what works for the neighborhoods. There's 29 of them. I joke we have 29 very unique children that have very unique needs.
Yeah,
and
you
so
do.
it's our job to understand what those needs are and respond accordingly to 29 different groups. That all
Like the
have different
boroughs of New
ways.
York.
Yeah, they all have different ways that they partner with the neighborhoods or partner with residents and partner with the city. We maintain all different levels of relationships with them. Some are very involved. Some are more like we're taking care of our own thing. We'll come to you when we need help, and it's on us to understand and provide resources as necessary.
Wow,
And so
that's a lot.
yeah.
So how many do you liaison with
Oh,
personally?
let's see. I have had upwards to 10 or 11 before,
Oh,
and I've
boy.
had as little as 4.
What are yours now?
I have most of mine are in District
this
3.
is a test, Gabby.
Yeah, most of mine are in District 3.
Okay.
I have one in District 2, so I liaise to Grandview Thorpe, which is along the 195 corridor,
Yep.
just below like the Government Way, West Hills area.
Yeah.
And then I have Northwest. I have Balboa, South Indian Trail. I have Emerson Garfield.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I have North Hill.
You don't have to get them all right. It's okay.
I don't forget any of
that
them.
was
I
an
adore
evil-
them all,
that was
to be
an
honest.
evil question.
I sit in a lot of night meetings. And
Yeah, you
I
do.
really do. I sit in a lot of night meetings, and I work with various committees as well.
How do you get through these meetings?
Um,
Are they always interesting? Because I found that one really interesting, but
yeah.
it must be. Somebody was like, someday, like you should run for office. I'm like, you know how many meetings are there? Not that I'm not in a lot of meetings now, but
I don't envy. I will say I don't envy elected officials. I think the expectations that a lot of people who run for office and when they win and they're elected, I sit in probably just as many meetings as our city council counterparts, but I mean I think they deal with some long hours as well.
Oh yeah. It is a labor of love.
Yeah, and
Has to be.
Yes, and I think that speaks to why people get involved. They're passionate, but also, as you asked about, what are these meetings like? Because it varies based on participation. It ebbs and flows. You never know if there's a hot topic happening in the neighborhood. You're bound to get upwards of 60, 70 people showing up.
Okay, so speaking of, Rob McCann was just on, and so when this hits, his episode will already be out. And we were talking about the Catalyst building up in Painted Hills, West Hills neighborhood. Is that the West Hills neighborhood?
Yeah.
So that was the neighborhood council meeting for West Hills a year and a half ago, a couple years ago. All really fired up and pissed off about bringing Catalyst, which was basically a pretty bad hotel, and bringing people from Camp Hope there.
Yeah.
And so we actually relived that and did a video project for it, kind of showing how they've come, how far it's come in a year and a half, and all the legitimate concerns people had that now have been kind of quieted because it's worked. But man, that meeting were you there? That meeting was fired up,
I have not attended any of the West Central ones, but experienced something
West Hills
similar happened in the Emerson Garfield Neighborhood Council when the Salvation Army's Way Out shelter came to.
So tell me about that and what happened.
Yeah, so this time has escaped me.
Yeah, it's okay.
How many years ago
It
this
was a few years, right?
It was probably 3 to 4 years ago when the Salvation Army announced that they were going to have a transitional shelter moving into the Emerson Garfield neighborhood. And
so where is that? Just so people know, where's Emerson Garfield, kind of roughly?
It's along the Monroe Business Corridor,
Yep.
so I think a lot in North Spokane. So west of Division,
Yeah.
along that Monroe Business Corridor.
Yeah.
That's the Emerson Garfield Corbin Park.
Yes. All the way up,
is
all the way up to
Emerson
Garland,
Garfield.
probably. or up to the
Yes,
hill
and
there.
that's where North Hill starts. So
Okay.
yeah, all the way kind of up to the hill, and then Garland
Yeah.
starts.
I used to live right
yeah.
at the top of the hill, Post Street Hill, right up there. So it was
Absolutely.
probably in Garland, but
Yeah, it's sandwiched between West Central and North Hill,
yeah.
so it's that
Okay.
area.
Gotcha.
But the Salvation Army was opening a transitional shelter, which
Where was that physically located? Do you remember? Is it
that's
on
a great
Monroe?
question. I don't think it's too far off of Division. To be
Yeah,
honest.
it's closer to Division.
It is closer to the business
Yeah,
district,
yeah.
like Division businesses,
Okay.
and there are a lot of concerns, and it came from residents, it came from business owners,
Yep.
because I think it was destined to have kind of more of an impact on commercial building area, and so the neighborhood council themselves worked really hard, I think, to get ahead of understanding that this was a space that concerned residents were going to show up to voice their concerns, that this was also a space that the Salvation Army as a community partner was going to show up and answer those questions.
Yep.
And also
just like Catholic Charities did when in the West Hills
absolutely
a year and a half ago. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
And it was also a space where neighborhood services staff, I was going to be there. The city council members of District 3 were going to be there, which was at the time council member Stratton and
Karen, yep.
I think maybe this was around council member Mum's end of her tenure as a council member. And so that we were actively working, and I got to give credit to former council member Stratton, who worked really hard to build what I believe she called a good neighbor agreement, which is how is the city and how are the service providers and how are the neighborhood councils going to come to an agreement about how to be
how people need to be
partners.
How they should partner together. Okay.
How they were going to address the concerns together, and not address them but also stay ahead of them.
Right.
And show the community. We understand that this is a hot topic. I mean, homelessness is always and the lack of affordable housing. Those things are always very hot topics.
Especially in this town
bring
right now.
people out in mass into neighborhood spaces, and so
this was
it was
pre-Camp Ho.
Yes. And that 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been with the city for about 5.5 years now, and that it was one of the first things I remember, like the really big thing happening in a neighborhood council.
So that's how they're used, really.
Yeah, and so the neighborhood council was really there to create a space and to make sure that there was a space where residents and officials and the community partners could all come together. And it's like, well, this is a space that questions are going to be asked and questions can be answered. Ideas
not a court
can be
of
thought
law.
of. Yeah, ideas can be thought of. I think that neighborhood councils are good places to go for the curious as well as the angry. They're spaces where, like, the full range of emotions end up in those spaces. And I think that comes from a deep passion or concern about an issue. People, when they're passionate about something, they can show up in a variety of different ways. And I've seen people who are very passionate show up very angry, and I've seen them show up very curious. Regardless, I think those neighborhood councils are spaces where understanding can be met. Hopefully that's the goal, is that levels of understanding can be met, and support and engagement and partnership. I think nowadays the dream world is that all of our neighborhood councils have stepped into full realization of like reciprocity and what building reciprocal community partnerships look like. And so that is across government agencies, that's across our service providers and our nonprofits, our residents, where community needs, community concerns, community needs, community celebration can all be found in those spaces. And it certainly ebbs and flows. You'll have area times where neighborhoods are going through deep challenges and deep successes, and I think the goal of our office and the goal of my work is to support them and show up with whatever resources that they need. So maybe it's $850 to put on a block party.
Get a band.
For my colleagues in the department. We also manage a neighborhood cleanup program.
Oh, cool.
So we remove tons of, I mean like the metric, like tons of waste from neighborhoods that otherwise wouldn't be removed.
So people just show up and help.
They can, based on, some of the neighborhoods do roll-off events where we kind of bring really large dumpsters into parking lots and people show up and drive and dump their waste on a specific
Yeah, it came in through my utility bill or whatever.
Yeah.
I saw that. We missed it. I did. Dang it.
It happens annually. It's a really great program. Annually, we
cool.
provide resources for folks to remove waste, and that's a focus on neighborhood beautification.
Right.
We also support them through traffic calming. So if you're driving around town and you see those mobile speed where it's telling you how fast you're going.
Well, they never go off.
Yeah. A safe driver. We appreciate that. But we support the neighborhoods in a variety of different ways. And I think the focus is increased community engagement, neighborhood safety, neighborhood beautification, and involved citizens or involved residents, so that everyone feels proud. Our tagline is, you don't have to move to live in a better place. You can be proud of the neighborhood that you live in, and based on your capacity, you can play a significant role in it.
That's cool. So of all the community engagement things that happen in these that come out of these neighborhood meetings and neighborhood students, what's the coolest one you've heard of, or a few that are like, that was cool that they did that, and people came up with ideas? Or
well, I love live music is always my favorite. So anytime, I absolutely love live music. I think that music itself is a really great community convener.
I've hoped my wife, it's really her idea, and she gets all the glory, but every year we do a little concert in our front yard.
Nice.
Just somebody that we know or that plays, because it just sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And tons of people show up, and it's just so cool. It's just such a fun
West
thing.
Central used to do something like that, and I've heard rumblings of it maybe being revived, but it used to be called Porch Fest.
Okay.
Where they would find artists and find homes that were willing to have someone sit on their stoop or their porch and play
That's
music.
what we do.
You kind of roam around to all the houses that day.
Oh, that's
to
cool.
catch all the set times. I would love.
That's a great idea.
I would
do
love
that.
to see
Maybe
that.
we need to work on this for my neighborhood.
Currently happening right now, street music week, and that is a partnership. I believe it benefits Second Harvest Food Bank, where they have buskers out and about.
Okay.
And you'll find them out front in front of the mall.
And all the proceeds go, or part of the proceeds go to
all the money that people drop in their buckets
or
or guitar cases.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I think any time that art and creativity is used as a way to bring people together are my favorite
your
uses
thing.
of
Yeah.
My favorite.
What do you love the most about your job? You have a really interesting job.
Yeah,
it's never boring.
No, it never is.
And it never stops.
No. Yeah, I think that anytime anyone does community work or wants to be a part of community engagement, it will both take a lot out of you, because you're often seen firsthand, like how broken systems are, or like
it's
solutions.
Stuff sometimes.
Yeah, solutions.
You see a lot of heavy in your week.
Yeah, and I also see a lot of like success stories, I guess, of residents getting involved and seeing the deep fulfillment that comes with people getting involved. I get to help play a part in people's passions becoming like a reality or a success story if they come on behalf of their residents, or maybe even on behalf of themselves, and they say, I see a problem. My role and our department's role is to get to be a part of the solution and to work alongside community members to figure out what can be done to address it. And that's how I ended up in this role, was because I was a participant in the East Central Neighborhood Council.
Okay.
And I got involved back in 2015, I'd say. And it was due to I was I was in my master's program, and my master's program in community economic development.
Where was that at?
Nebraska, University of Nebraska,
Okay.
Lincoln. And one of my classes was like, get involved in a community organization. And I was living in East Central at the time, and I learned about the neighborhood council and decided to get involved. And I had the capacity to get involved pretty quickly at a deeper level. And so I was tasked with kind of being the representative of the neighborhood council, of the East Central Neighborhood Council, when it came to, there was a committee I sat on called the Community Assembly Community Development Committee. And in addition to neighborhood councils, we support a group called Community Assembly, and each of the neighborhoods, all 29, send a representative, a community assembly rep, to a monthly meeting. Okay. And that is where all the CA for short, reps or their alternate reps sit and address concerns as well. And so our city council president shows up, depending on the topic that's being discussed. Other representatives from the city show up to discuss it.
They all kind of mention the things that are hot or in their neighborhood.
And choose to take collective action. Because while it's really important that neighborhoods individually, they have the ability to take action as an individual. Community assembly is where the neighborhoods can come together and take collective action, and also connect on that's impacting your neighborhood. We had no idea it's also impacting our neighborhood. Right. So how can we work together? They also have the ability to review and recommend changes to policies that city council or different departments plan to implement. A lot of them represent their liaisons on city boards and commissions. Okay. And they also maintain their own committees as well as relevant.
It's a complex thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It is certainly.
How do you remember it all?
Do
it every day.
The amount of acronyms, we actually have an acronym dictionary. I know I'm always trying to be mindful if I must say the word acronym first. Oh gosh.
Dumbest one.
I don't. I have lists of so many acronyms that sometimes I forget what they mean, but we always have a reference sheet. Yeah. And I got involved in the CACD, the Community Assemblies Community Development Committee. And we were tasked with making recommendations. So something really unique about Spokane, and they don't do it anymore, but this was the case when I got involved. Every city that has a pretty significant low to moderate income population, they receive community development block grants from HUD. And
I was going to do urban development,
and
the federal
the city, very unique, no other city in the United States was doing this, that the city of Spokane allocated based on each individual neighborhood's LMI, low to moderate income numbers. They received an allocation of that money, of those CDBG funds, and the neighborhoods decided where those funds went. So you had,
Isn't that great? Isn't that how all cities should do it, or was it a disaster?
I think it's one of those, on paper it was great because it really involved a lot of folks.
It sounds great. It sounds like a really well-meaning thing.
And at other times it became a significant challenge because you would have, it was still an RFP process, just like HUD expects. And they would work with our Community Housing Human Services Department. So I was working alongside, as the East Central representative. I believe they probably got about $500,000, and you're dividing that between 29 neighborhood councils. Not every neighborhood council got an allocation.
Qualified because they didn't meet the low income parameters.
That created friction and tension. Some neighborhoods weren't getting improvement, neighborhood improvement funds. Some neighborhoods prioritized because the nonprofits within those neighborhoods would request funds and apply for them, and then it was up to the neighborhood councils to decide where those funds went to which nonprofits in their neighborhood. And a lot of times it was like a community center asking for a new roof or, like improvements to their facilities to provide better services. Sometimes they were using it to repair sidewalks. So the mixture of where these funds were going, and $500,000 seems like a lot, but when you divide it up,
No.
those pots of funds get
for
very
bigger projects
small.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, and so while it was great that neighborhoods were deciding where it would go because it was supposed to be like a truly like community engaged process, they were working with very small chunks of change, and $10,000
doesn't do enough.
Yeah, it's compared, and so when I was
so if a neighborhood
part
says,
of it,
this street has really got to get fixed, but it's more than they have allocated dollars for, then that ends up not actually helping.
And almost becomes demoralizing. And residents, it potentially threatens their faith in the system.
Put somewhere else where they could have applied for those, they would have been able to have a larger chunk if it was deemed more important.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was, I got to be a part of the allocation shift. And so when I was getting involved, I was working alongside a couple other community members in the community and working with my master's. I wanted my master's degree.
And you did this online?
Yeah, I was an online student. Really cool master's program. I will always talk with passion about my master's program and why it was. I think it was a really cool, unique program that I benefited immensely from. Even though I never stepped foot in Lincoln, Nebraska, I'm still a proud Cornhusker.
Still a Cornhusker.
Still a proud Cornhusker. And I got to work alongside a lot of community members and the Community Housing Human Services Department when we kind of realized that allocation model, while very unique,
it's not working.
Wasn't having as big of an impact that larger sums of money
could have done.
And so we went through a transition in the allocation process where it became district associated after that. So we went from letting the neighborhoods individually to asking the neighborhoods within each of our 3 districts to work together.
Cool.
And what that also opened was the opportunity for those neighborhoods that didn't, the neighborhoods that didn't receive allocations, to also get to come forth with concerns or challenges that their neighborhoods had and see if maybe the money needed to be allocated to certain other areas.
Wow.
So it was very interesting, and I haven't kept up with it because I eventually transitioned
you have a day
into a job with the city. And I haven't really kept up much with how the CDBG funds are allocated nowadays. I know that our neighborhoods still have significant passion about getting involved. That committee that I was involved in still exists.
That's cool.
And they still want to work alongside.
That's cool. So how did you come here?
Yeah, I'm from Tampa, Florida.
Just down the street?
Yeah, just a hop, skip, jump away. And I'm from Tampa, but I was raised. Tampa's a really big city. I think its metro population at a certain point, the last time I checked, was 3 million.
Yeah,
and it's huge.
Yeah,
but I was raised in a very tiny town, about an hour north. I think a lot of people, when they think of Florida, if you're thinking of Miami, Tampa, Orlando, or Jacksonville, those are huge cities, and if you leave those city limits, you're in farmland.
Yeah, you
and
are.
So I was raised in like a 2,000 person, 4 stoplights, more cows than people kind of town, where everyone knew everyone.
That's cool.
And I, from a very young age, was always involved in community service. My grandma, my mom, community service and like showing up for the community and volunteering is a really big value. I would also defend that it's a very Southern value, like showing up in certain spaces, that you take care of one another and that you look out for one another. And when you grow up in a deeply rural community, remembering, I was the only one I'm the oldest of my siblings, and I remembered what it was like living in Tampa and having resources readily available. A lot of resources were centralized, so if you needed something, you could find everything you needed in a pretty close area. And moving to a very rural community, those resources were decentralized, they were stigmatized, and so there's a deep reliance that in rural communities you look out for one another, because you know that the resources aren't there, and
Yeah.
so your resources are your community
Right.
and are one another,
And
so,
churches.
yeah,
and,
yeah,
Right. It's
exactly.
small town America.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere.
And so we volunteered. It was always something that was, encouraged of us growing up. My mom was an example. My grandma, they were all examples of what it meant to like show up for your community and serve. And so I valued community service a lot growing up. And I'm a first gen college student and came from a low income like background, and
First
so
in your
for
family
college,
to
yeah,
go to college. Congratulations.
and thank you.
That's a big deal.
It is.
It is.
And yeah, first person with a bachelor's and first person with a master's degree. And so
Wow.
and I think for any first gen student will tell you it's more than just your degree. It's
Oh yeah.
like that education is like it's an honor
transcendent.
of my family. Yeah. And but the community service and getting involved, that was how it was a huge part of how I got to go to college. I got a scholarship that was reliant upon me achieving a certain amount of community service hours.
Huh.
In order for me to get this scholarship that paid for 100% of my tuition. It was the lottery, the Florida lottery, paid for my school. So while gambling makes me very uncomfortable, I would always thank people for buying lottery tickets.
You are a beneficiary
yeah.
of gambling.
I worked at a grocery store, very popular, Publix. I worked for a Publix when I was in college, and when people come through and buy lottery tickets, I would always thank them, and they'd be like, "Why are you thanking me?" And I was like, "Because you're paying for my college, and I want you to know how important that is."
Yeah.
And so I had to get a lot of community service hours to go to school, or to be able to get the scholarship. Yeah, good grades and a lot of community service hours, and so
those go a long way, man.
And that was there are certain things that I'm really passionate about. My community service hours, I always joke that it wasn't hard to get them. I had a really cool job. I had a really cool volunteer post. I was the student athletic trainer for our football team.
Oh my
and
God.
if you know anything about rural
Yes.
communities,
Yeah.
football is probably the second most important thing behind church.
Yes,
like
very close second.
And so
some Saturdays, maybe a little more.
Yep, I had the best.
So this was high school.
And I thought I wanted to go.
High school trainer?
Yeah, like athletic training. I thought I wanted to go into that. Really rough career path for someone who's squeamish to blood.
Yeah. What was your favorite team you followed then?
Oh, my favorite football team?
Yes.
This is deeply controversial up here.
Okay,
so
that's fine. You gotta go.
I'm a Steelers fan.
Wow. How the hell are you a Steelers fan?
My dad's from Pittsburgh.
Oh, well, that'll do. That was easy.
So my dad, I always joke, I'm like, because I'm not
Why is
from
that
Pittsburgh,
controversial?
Pittsburgh's
Pittsburgh's
Seahawks.
Of course, that's me. I'm a
here,
total Seahawk fan. Oh yeah, and then you got. Oh, and you stole a Super Bowl from us. Oh, that's right. I forgot.
You know what? I'm not a rowdy Steelers fan.
It wasn't your fault. Hey, it wasn't your fault that you got it.
No.
It was. You're welcome. It was a gift.
Hey, you know what? I'm really excited this year. We have Russell Wilson.
I know. You know what I'm really excited about? That you have Russell Wilson.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this year as a Steelers fan. I think.
I like Russ.
I'm not going to jinx anything, but we have.
Mike Tomlin is fantastic.
Oh,
okay?
absolute
so
wizard.
I love that guy.
Yes.
Anyway.
We just signed him to a contract extension, so in him we trust.
I know. He's rad.
We have great GM.
I get him and Will.i.am kind of mixed up.
Well, they're both excellent at what they do.
They are incredibly excellent at what they do.
But yeah, I football was obviously the whole Friday Night Lights type deal. The whole town would shut down on a Friday night and go to a football game, and that was such a deep
what
culture.
Was the college team? Florida State, Florida.
Well, yeah, it's kind of similar to how it is with like the
Cougs
and the Huskies.
Yeah, who is your town?
Well, in Florida, you have to choose like, are you a Seminole or are you a Gator?
Right.
And then we do have our Miami Hurricanes fans.
That's true. Hurricanes.
My family are pretty devout Gator fans.
Okay.
I actually like the Seminoles growing up. Florida State. I always thought I was going to go to Florida State. And then literally a 2-hour class presentation that I went through my senior year of high school completely upended those plans and decided where I went to college. I went back to Tampa. I went to University of South Florida. I'm an incredibly proud
Oh,
USF
cool.
Bull.
USF, yeah.
Yeah. And it was because I met a person who ended up becoming my mentor in college.
Huh.
And she's a world-renowned political analyst,
Wow.
Dr. Susan McManus. And this
Huh.
was during the '08 elections, and she came and
Okay.
talked about the elections and the science behind and the sociology and
Oh, wow.
behind elections. And I did not think that I wanted to do that. I thought I wanted to go into athletic training.
Right.
I also, at one point, because I loved music so much, I wanted to work for record labels, and I wanted to be the one that went out and discovered bands and got to sign them to record labels.
Yeah.
I wanted to be A&R rep.
A&R.
And then, but I was always very intrigued by politics, and I volunteered a lot
By the way,
in the community.
you could have done, and probably still can do all of those.
Yeah,
things.
I could. I mean,
like,
I
you
could
really
absolutely
could. I could see you in anything. I don't know what that is, but
I think transferable skills.
yeah, right. Well, they probably have more in common than you think.
Absolutely.
Athletic trainer, politics.
Absolutely. I mean, some
a lot of
athletes
politics.
come and go, interchangeable.
Yeah. Elected official,
Yeah.
athlete, a coach.
But I mean, my trajectory changed.
Wow.
And I decided I wanted to go into political science as a background, and that
She changed you.
Yeah, I was like, I
Ruined
must
for
take
life,
this
as
lady's
they say.
classes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I want her to be my mentor. I want to learn. I want to learn all about the systems.
That's so
And
cool.
It's a lot of I joke that political science is a very soft science. It is like 70% philosophy and a little bit of sociology and a little bit of history sprinkled in.
And very little
yes.
data.
Yeah. The data's the rough part.
Depending on who
yeah.
you're talking
But
to.
I've always been so interested in people's behavior and like why people make decisions, what leads them, what the background. It's the story, people's stories. How does someone's upbringing, how does someone's experiences in life decide the decisions that they make in their outlook that they have on life?
Wow.
And political science was the perfect degree for that because you're really studying human behavior and trying to make guesses on how people would behave based on all the factors that lead up to making a person who they are. And it transcends beyond politics, but obviously there's a very deep interest in politicians understanding people's behavior.
Right.
And that kind of whereas a lot of people, political science is a pre-law degree.
Yeah. So my daughter is just, you would have been maybe a fit for this. So she's part of a new degree at University of Washington, first class,
awesome.
called Anthropology of Globalization. So it's,
I would be so interested.
right? It's all how things connect.
Yeah.
It's similar to what you're talking about. That was the interesting part to you was how do all these things connect across, right? And she's loved it. She's loved sort of the whole experience of that.
That's
and
awesome.
now is interested in going to
Yeah.
be a law school.
Yeah. And one of the other thing that I was deeply passionate about learning alongside that was leadership development. So how do people get into leadership positions? And so it's kind of one of those like it set me up for the success to do the work that I am doing now.
Wow.
And that's kind of where my passion started. And I was through college, I stayed deeply involved in community service. I wanted to keep giving back to the community. Food access, as a person who grew up in like experiencing rural poverty, it looks very different than urban poverty.
So let's talk about that. Because we do a lot of work for Second Harvest, and we've done a lot of work around the issue. In fact, I just interviewed an amazing person that we're pushing a video out about, who literally was homeless, had lost her kids, and without food banks in her life, for lack of a better word, would have not made it. And now she's come back and has an incredible life thanks to her grit, Union Gospel Mission helping along the way, DAA Auto Group doing an incredible job, and Second Harvest, kind of all these things that have now, 8 years sober, doing really, really good. She's an incredible person. But how does it look? We've followed Second Harvest around quite a bit in the last several years, going to smaller communities. And I'll never forget the first time, I can't remember exactly the town. It was in Central Washington. I want to say, it wasn't Zella, but it was somewhere near kind of between Tri-Cities and Yakima. And they had a mobile market. Second Harvest did. Yeah. Which means cars pull up and somebody hands you some food. And we filmed, I'm like, oh, wow, the line's kind of long. And so we filmed the line. It was over a mile long. people in a small town sitting in their cars looking and waiting for food. And I will never forget, everybody in the car, all four of us, were just completely quiet, moved by that, like shocked that is going on in the United States of America. And it's since probably even grown. That's just not something we think about.
No, food access is an incredibly challenging thing, I think.
What was it like for you? What was your story around that? And
I remember, because of the lack of centralized resources for folks, and this is still very true, including in urban environments and rural environments, is that, especially for kids, so growing up as a child in a rural environment and seeing that, like, a lot of my peers, or sometimes even, like, I would say I'm pretty lucky that I had access to food, like, in my home, but for a lot of my peers, that was their only meal. Whatever you got is school.
Yeah.
That's why things like, I know here the Backpacks program,
Bike to Go
is incredibly valuable.
Tom Stevenson, was the guy that founded it here, was just on. He'll be a guest, and that we've done a lot of work around Bike to Go. And it is 10 years ago, there were no kids getting food on the weekends supplemented because they had that was it. Now there's over 10,000 in the city of Spokane,
which is awesome.
And yet the need is another 12. There's 12,000 people in Eastern Washington, kids who should be getting food on the weekend that aren't,
and nutritious food at that.
Yes,
there's a difference between food and it being like nutritious sustenance, and I think unfortunately a lot of food on it, like, isn't nutritious, which is also detrimental in many ways.
The Bite to Go guys work really hard. It's actually pretty good. I mean, soups and but it has to be stuff that the kids can actually make themselves, because they may be the only ones making it. Yeah, and that was a reality for me growing up a lot. I had both my parents worked. They worked very long hours. They were both nurses, and they worked an hour away. So me and my sisters were latchkey kids. So it was very much a responsibility. I remember as a kid to make sure that food, like, that we had food that we could cook ourselves. So ate a lot of bagels that were turned into pizzas, right? Big fan. Oh gosh. Is this why you're such a great? Is this why you're such a great snacker? So I just have to disclose, like, I've never had a guest on this podcast bring snacks.
Well, I hope I set a precedent.
No, but they weren't just snacks. These are badass, cool snacks.
Yeah,
right?
My favorite snack.
What did you bring?
The Zapp's Voodoo pretzel sticks and Mambas, which I know people love Starburst, but I'm always going to be one of those. Like, Mambas are so good.
I've never heard of these before.
Yeah,
that's where your snacking kind of came from, probably.
Oh yeah, I think that. Growing
roots.
up, like, food, and very much in the South, like, food is the best way to get community together. And so growing up in like Southern Baptist churches and stuff, like, you went for, like, the food. And so one of the things that my mom would always volunteer as is Wednesday nights, when typically church was held on the weeknights. She would sign up all the time for, like, us to cook the meal. And so we'd be cooking for 100 to 200 people twice a month on Wednesday nights and stuff. So I learned from a very young age how to cook. Baking is a hobby of mine, as a love for
and you get
food.
To take some of that food home now.
Yeah, as a love for food as a means of celebration and community and fellowship. And so that's food access is something that is very passionate that I'm very passionate about. And in college, I got involved with Feeding Tampa Bay, which is like a
part of the Feeding America group, and what Second Harvest is a member.
And I experienced some honestly deeply profound, like, service experiences through that, by both showing my peers and leading peers into service to understand food insecurity more, which had been a reality for me growing up and wasn't surprising to me, but, like, getting to help other people understand how deep food insecurity impacts people. Kids can't pay attention in school if they're hungry.
Exactly right.
You can't pay attention or stay awake at work if you're hungry. And so, like,
everybody
food insecurity,
loses when a kid's hungry.
And food waste is so bad in our country. Unfortunately, I think I remember when I first moved here. I remember I got the really wonderful opportunity to work with, her name's Natalie Towson, and she's with the Feed Cheney.
Okay.
And so when I were my AmeriCorps, sorry to tie this all back to my
Yeah.
how I ended up over here.
Yeah. You got to
Yes,
Spokane through AmeriCorps.
yeah, AmeriCorps. So I volunteered a lot in college, and my mom, I remember her saying, like, you need to find a career path. Like, you can't just volunteer for the rest of your life.
You can't be a professional volunteer.
You can't be a professional volunteer. And I was like, well, let's see if I can. Let's see if I can be a professional volunteer.
You actually did.
Yeah.
So you, Mom.
Yeah. I discovered AmeriCorps, and was like, I could get paid a small amount of wages, but I could get paid to be a volunteer to the federal government. And so that after I graduated, I was like, I want to look into AmeriCorps and see what this is all about. For those who don't know what AmeriCorps is, it's like the Domestic Peace Corps, is what I would equate it to.
Clinton started it in the 90s. It was an amazing idea.
And so I joined AmeriCorps Vista, which is Volunteers in Service to America. And a little nice thing about AmeriCorps is that it's like a job board. So when you're looking for places to serve at, they're kind of like job postings that you go on, and you can see exactly what you're going to do.
Saying where you want to go and what you do.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And you can apply. You apply for them like a normal job.
Off. You get a little bit of a choice.
Sometimes I feel like my understanding also of the Peace Corps is that you can kind of tell them where you want to end up and what your skill sets are, but you often don't get a full say in what your job is. AmeriCorps was different. Okay. I got to fully understand what program I was going to go into and what my job was. And at the time, I had just graduated from college, and I was 20. I didn't know if I wanted to go to grad school, but for me, college was interesting because I was a first-gen student. And
that was a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, and I did it. I was very, very privileged to have a scholarship that paid for most of my school. I was able to get a lot of scholarships due to grades, and thank you.
With incredible volunteering and excellent students. So whatever. Okay.
And I also got to do. They have it here. It's a different name. It's called dual enrollment in Florida. Running Start.
Running Start. Yeah.
So by the time I graduated high school, I was maybe one class shy of my 2-year degree. Yes. So I went into university already in my major, already enrolled. Right. I had taken all my prereqs.
Yeah, my stepson Keenan's 19. Yeah. He's at Eastern, and he'll be a senior.
Nice. It's such an important program.
Because of Running Start. Oh.
Yeah. I also got support in what it was like to be a college student while I was still in high school.
Right, you get to experience that.
Because I didn't have any blueprint. I didn't have my parents weren't able to speak about that. Yeah. And so I didn't know what college was going to be like. And so the opportunity to get to participate in dual enrollment helped me understand what was needed of me to be a successful college student. So I went to University of South Florida, got through that in a couple years. And I got there pretty quickly because of dual enrollment. And so I graduated when I was 20, and I was like, what do I do? Like, what am I going to what am I going to do? Yeah.
It's early to make those decisions.
Yeah. And I was just like, okay, well, I have all these options. And I remember I could do AmeriCorps. I could volunteer, and maybe that would help. And for me, because I didn't quite know what I wanted to get a master's degree in or advanced degree or pursue as a career path, I took it as an opportunity to learn more about myself and how I wanted to navigate the world around me and create a career. And my college experience was so profound because of the mentors that I had, because of the people, my faculty members that looked out for me. I had 2 faculty members that through my programs that were like my campus moms. They looked out for me. They kept an eye on me in ways that honestly, I didn't even have to ask for. They just
they saw the first gen kid. And they're like, we're helping her.
Yeah, and they are the reason why I made it through. Dr. Susan McManus and Dr. Jennifer Espinola, and honestly, Dr. Espinola, she actually moved out to the Pacific Northwest. About 6 months before I did. She's the Dean of Law at University of Oregon.
No way.
Yeah, and so a couple Florida gals getting out, getting up to the PNW and enjoying it, making a profound difference in the community. Hopefully, that's our. I know it was always her goal as well.
So why did you pick Spokane if you had to say?
Oh, I applied to about 18 different AmeriCorps positions all around the country.
Okay.
I'm talking, I could have gone and been a part of a team of 10 AmeriCorps that helped manage a 200-bed shelter in inner city Chicago.
Whoa.
I could have gone to the University of Southern Maine in Portland to run community service programs. I could have gone down to Miami to do youth mentoring. I could have gone to Fargo, North Dakota. That was my one that I was like, how fun would that have been? But I hear a lot of stories about Fargo.
Dropping into Fargo would have been awesome.
And that would have been, they would have given me one of the site dogs, and my job would have been as the educator of why people should support programs to train
that's cool.
site dogs. Yeah. And then, I had there were a lot of opportunities. I applied to 18 different positions. I think there was one even in Puerto Rico, one in Alaska.
Wow.
I had the option to go just about anywhere in the country. At the time, I was feeling a little burnt out from being in Florida, and I was like, I would like to get really far away.
Get out of the humidity.
Yeah.
Okay, that check.
Yes, it's very hot down there. There are a lot of things I miss, like my hockey team and
Had
the
you
food.
ever experienced snow?
When I was a kid, a few times. I had been to like Pennsylvania in the winter.
Oh, that's right.
I'd been to
Dad's
North
a
Carolina,
Pittsburgh fan,
and so I had spent time on East Coast snow, but I'd been out to California
That's pretend
once.
snow.
Yeah.
East Coast snow. Sounds
Yeah.
nice. Sorry.
I had been.
I mean Buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I mean that's the biting cold. Yeah. I had been to the West Coast once. I'd been to California to visit grandparents when I was in 8th grade. I had applied to all these different AmeriCorps positions. I applied to 18 and I was accepted to 11 of them. So I really had my choice of where I wanted to go. But I remember my interview. So my AmeriCorps position was with Eastern Washington University in their Office of Community Engagement. And if you're looking to interview another person on your show, I cannot recommend the person who made the decision to hire me and move me out here. Her name is Dr. Molly Ayers, and she's the Dean of Community Engagement at Gonzaga.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. Oh, she's a Gonzaga.
Yeah, and she, at the time, she had just opened the Office of Community Engagement at
Molly
EWU.
Ayers.
Yeah, and she had left Gonzaga, their Center for Community Engagement, because Eastern Washington University wanted to open an Office of Community Engagement, and she had chosen to leave Gonzaga to come over and open that department and build it from the ground up, and was given the opportunity to hire AmeriCorps to help that. And when I was in college, because I loved volunteering, I immediately got plugged into volunteering in our Center for Community Engagement at USF.
Okay.
And so I was a volunteer, and then eventually I became like a site leader. So I was leading peers into service, and then eventually I became like a program.
So you're familiar with that?
What she was building.
Yeah.
And so she's like, I'm hiring AmeriCorps to build a student volunteer program from the ground up.
Ooh,
We're building one, and it would be your job. And I was like, I did this when I was in school. I was a volunteer, then I was a site leader, and then I was like, this is kind of a continuation of something I'm passionate about. That I get to take my understanding of what volunteer programs needed and how to build community partnerships and what college students are looking for to get out of, like, what they can contribute to service, and also what they get out of it, what they learn, and how they expand their understanding of the world from it. And so I was like, I absolutely want to be a part of this.
You knew.
Yes. And I remember one of the questions was, do you guys have a hockey team? Because that was deeply important to it. There's one thing you know about me, it is that there's very little in this world I love more than hockey. And I know that's weird coming from Florida. But I love hockey. Go Lightning. Also go Kraken.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so excited that Seattle has a team.
No, they're good.
Yes.
My sister is one of my older sisters completely a Kraken crazy.
Yes, I love more of that.
How did that happen?
Oh, that brings me a lot of joy because I loved hockey, and
The logo's cool, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I like their swag. It's good stuff.
It is. And I think hockey's
so Tampa Bay
fun
Lightning,
thing
that's
for the
where this
community.
came from, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I think there was one of the Spokane Chiefs had
Tyler Johnson.
Yes.
Undrafted.
Right.
Came up through the minor league system.
Yes.
And he ended up on our AHL team.
He was a Chief.
Yeah. He was a Spokane Chief. And then I think he was our minor league team was it was the Norfolk Admirals, and then it became the Syracuse Crunch. And so he was on that team that won like multiple Calder Cups, Memorial Cups.
Yeah.
part of an incredible minor league team that happened to be affiliated with Tampa. And that was when Tampa was experiencing some pretty rough years.
Yes.
Rough time as a fan in the early 2000s. Yes. After their cup win, they won in 03-04. And then the years kind of after that were a little rough. And
did you get hooked because
the ownership
of stuff?
So, yeah. I started watching hockey in
age?
2003. In 2003, so I was 12.
Okay.
And
I have a theory about kids and sports and 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
That whoever wins or is good, especially near you, you are a fan for life.
Yes. And I can attest to that. I'm also my college football fan.
Boston Red Sox, nice. Big Poppy, won when he was 10. He loves it.
That's perfect.
Each row.
Oh, yeah. I remember where I was. Like, I played, I grew up playing softball.
Oh, wow,
And me and my sisters played travel softball. So we were traveling all over the state. We were traveling out of state. I was a catcher.
Yeah.
I was a catcher for about 11 or 12 of those years. And then I eventually ended up on outfield towards my latter end because turns out your knees aren't invincible.
Yeah, cartilage.
And eventually that wears down on them. 11 years, 12 years of that.
Guys, and I'm like, how are you still catching?
Yeah,
man?
I'll probably need 2 new knee replacements in the next handful of years or so. But so we were constantly traveling, and so I spent every weekend in a
hockey team.
Well, I spent a lot of time in hotels on the weekends, and so there wasn't much to do except you're turning on the TV. And I remember we'd come back to the hotel from tournaments, and I'd turn on the TV and hockey would be on. And I remember being like, I don't know anything about this sport, but I ended up watching. Yeah, it is. It's incredibly difficult.
What the hell's talking?
Yeah, it's hard to track, and of course, in the early 2000s, the technology wasn't.
It was even worse. Yeah, it's not HD.
TV grainy. Yeah, the pucks don't have like chips or markers on them that tell you where they are at any given time. And I remember watching. I had the opportunity. I watched the entire 2003 to 2004 season, leading up to them hoisting the cup. And I remember throughout that whole year, I had gotten my whole softball team hooked on it, and we would come back after the hotels and we would put on the TV, and I got my family hooked on it.
Nothing like that.
Yeah, and I remember seeing them hoist that cup, and I was like, there is no greater sport in the entire world than this. Like, this is hockey. I love this.
Lord Stanley.
Yes, and being a part of a very unique Florida, people love to kind of scoff at it and be like, hockey in Florida?
I know, right?
And in 2003, that early, it was absolutely bonkers to think of a team doing well. And it's like, well, that's where the NHL greats go to retire. Why would they have a team? Who would want to play hockey when you're outside, it's 80 degrees and you walk into a rink?
Well, they sell it out if you win. It's fun.
Exactly. It's the best air conditioning ever. Go into an ice rink.
Of course.
But I remember when I got to go back to Tampa for college, and just their practice rink, I financially irresponsible, but spent a sizable amount of money going to hockey games.
Hey, whatever.
Yeah, and
you could have done a lot worse.
Yeah, okay. I could have spent a lot of money on different things. Exactly. Always support your local athletes.
Yeah, I mean, now there's a soccer team here too.
We're so lucky. I could speak for a long time on this.
If you want to go.
I've been to 4 games already. I love it. And let me tell you,
they're awesome.
I want to buy tickets to the women's league now. Very affordable. They're starting this fall.
Zephyr, yeah.
And I'm learning soccer. There are a lot of sports that being in Spokane I've learned.
They're
yes.
Really good.
I'm so excited about that.
Really good.
Yes.
But the women, I think, are supposed to be really good.
And I really love the way that I've seen Spokane embrace soccer here. I knew that there were so many soccer fans. We
filmed the opening game.
Yeah.
And there were some people at that will remain nameless. They were like, they're not going to
sell out crowd. Yeah.
Sold out. They marched from Riverfront Park like en masse. We filmed the whole thing. It was like 500 people walking to the game, chanting. Yeah. It was so cool.
That reminds me a lot of the way that the soccer community is embraced here is the way that hockey was in Tampa for me.
That's cool.
You're in a weird, unique market where we're doubted all the time.
Right.
It does a couple things. It kept the players humble. Yeah. The players would hang out in the community. I'd see them in the mall.
Right.
They'd hang out after practice and talk to fans. Like, there's one player, he doesn't play anymore. He always racked up the most penalty minutes in the NHL when he was on our team. His nose had been broken so many times. It was kind of just a lump on his nose. The biggest teddy bear you'd ever meet. Yeah. He had a pet bunny also. His name was Zenon Konopka. He was one of the coolest dudes. I remember him skating off the ice after practice one day, and he's like, oh, we play the Capitals. Who do you want me to punch in the face tonight? Like, really fun.
Wow.
It was kind of.
Did he punch the person you
No,
asked?
because the person I told him, unfortunately, was like one of maybe their star players, so that's not very much not allowed. Yeah, I did pick the wrong person to stick the enforcer on.
So you're going. I think I want to go to Spokane, and then you find out.
Yeah, we have a
Chiefs.
hockey team.
Oh, yeah, they're great, too. The Chiefs are
And
great.
kind of a
Go
full circle
Chiefs, go.
moment on that, which is that when I came here, I was working in the Office of Community Engagement. The grad student that was working in the department next to me was the guy who rang the gong at the Chiefs
way.
games. At that day, he was a grad student, and he found out that I loved hockey. He also found out it was the number 2 thing on my bucket list to learn how to drive a Zamboni.
Oh my God.
He also made that happen for me.
You drove the Zamboni?
Not the Chiefs one. The EWU rink manager found out.
I've seen their rink.
And let me, he was like, hey, you need to block off a few hours on your calendar today. I'm going to take you down to the rink. And I became a certified Zamboni driver that day.
Oh my! Well, so,
Making dreams come true.
And Eastern has a hockey rink.
Yes, they do.
Not a lot of cool schools do. That's actually really cool.
And so when I moved here, I was like, this town embraces hockey in a way.
So this is really interesting because do you know Rob McCann? Do you know Rob at all?
Catholic Charities, right?
Church president, right?
I've always worked in orbit, been able to work in orbit with Catholic Charities.
If you run into Rob, this is now the key. He
Mm-hmm.
is as big a hockey fan as you are.
Yeah.
He played hockey growing up in New York. He's a big Rangers fan. And he kind of approaches life like he's a hockey player, you know, and he's like, and I wasn't a scorer, if you know what I mean. So like, but yeah, you guys have definite the same, you light up the same way. I have like 2 guests in a row.
Oh, I love hockey.
We're like hockey fanatics.
It's my favorite thing to take. It was my favorite thing to take people to games every year because you used to buy a pack of 10 tickets for like $100 and you sit in the nosebleeds. But for people that are learning the game, sitting up higher is better. The game moves a lot slower. And so every year for Christmas when I was in college, I'd get a 10-pack of tickets and I would choose 9 friends that had never been to a hockey game before. And I'd say, you're coming to a hockey game with me. I'm going to teach you what this is like. And I'd pick a game when I knew there were going to be a lot of fights. And I'm like, you're hooked. You're hooked after that.
You like the fights. Gabby,
I appreciate that it's a sport in which when someone does something not cool, that you have to.
You have consequences.
Yeah, you have consequences for it.
No, I mean that's really true. So
immediate consequences.
So have you become an all basketball fan here? I mean, Gonzaga, come on.
So when I moved here, there were a couple of sports that I just didn't know that much of.
Right.
When I moved here, basketball was one of them. Soccer, yeah, I know we had the Magic. I mean, to be honest, I can't speak to their talent. I never paid attention to them. My experience in growing up with basketball was the And One mixtape teams. It was like, I don't know if you.
Nick knows.
So good. It was like Harlem Globetrotters, but street ball.
Oh, right on. Oh, yeah.
So entertaining. So much fun. The amount of talent that it took to be good at that. Oh, yeah.
That's the whole reason And One's was even a brand.
Yes.
Those killed.
Yes.
Just like highlight reels of
absolutely. I mean, just like doing frog leaps over people and dunking on them. It wasn't enough with And One.
What time you got, Nick? Do you know?
I think we got about 30 minutes left.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
We
yeah.
can talk forever. You're so awesome.
But yeah, with And One basketball, it was like street basketball with tricks and fun. So you had to be good at basketball. You had to be good. And so I loved basketball, but that was my only understanding of it. And moving here and getting to experience like the community that the Zags create and how are passionate about it. It's the same. And Hoop Fest, which was an absolute wild phenomenon to witness.
When you saw that.
Yeah, I was like, the largest basketball tournament in the world in Spokane of all places.
What is this?
I really enjoyed seeing the way that I think Spokane rallies around sports.
Yeah.
I heard a stat, and I don't know if it's still true, but I heard a stat that Spokane hosts the most NCAA like championships and tournaments, and it's not always in the sports that you think that people
could be,
think of.
Yeah, ping pong,
yeah,
stuff like that.
tennis, like,
year. I mean,
and the way that we've invested in the community to support that and to continue to expand that now, I think is a testament. I went to my first. So this year, I told myself I am going to.
Okay.
Oh, you're good. And
Well,
I
okay,
loved it.
I will. Would you, if you want to go to a men's game?
Oh, I absolutely would.
All
I
right, well, so
100% would go to a men's game.
Okay, this year we're going.
You mean I don't have to camp out in the tents like the
No.
kids? Like, I mean, I'm impressed by them
No.
because I would do that.
No,
I would
I
camp
would
out
too.
for tickets.
Yeah, well, hell yeah.
I
No,
would
I'd
too.
love to take you. That would
Yeah.
be super fun.
That would be an
No, that's
absolute
awesome.
treat.
That's good. You're gonna pick the right game.
I'm learning about basketball now because like I'm trying to learn. I went to the March Madness tournament that was here for the men's. I found $10 tickets.
It's an incredible ride.
What a deal.
What?
$10 tickets.
Man.
And then I ended up going the Sunday. I went on Friday for the morning games, and then on Sunday I went to the Sunday games, and I happened to end up in the Alabama family section. And
Florida,
it
Alabama.
was amusing.
I
I
bet.
love one of my
You miss it. It's
I
probably
think-
bringing back home a little bit. Didn't it?
yeah. The Roll Tide is definitely like an expression that's used beyond the university.
Yeah.
But I had such a blast. I was sitting near one of like the star. I was sitting in front of one of their star player, Estrada. His mom had an absolute ball of a time sitting
That's
behind,
awesome.
sitting in front of her, listening to her.
Yeah,
Really
I've
give
had
it to
a
the
few,
refs.
A few parents
Yeah.
near us at Gonzaga games, and they're awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love the way that
Opposing parents.
Spokane. Yeah, I love the way that Spokane rallies around sports.
Yeah.
I think sports is a really grand way to build community.
It is.
For me,
And
moving
they
from
have really,
Tampa,
Gonzaga
yeah,
has transcended
yeah,
sports
hmm
here. It's not that. It's kind of part of the fabric of
Yeah.
that, you know, and
it is Spokane's culture.
And really growing up, like my grandparents, it was, you know, they were members of you know, clubs like,
Mhm.
you know, the Masons and the, you know, the whatever, you know, all
Mm-hmm.
those sort of the Moose and the Elks and the, you know, those fraternal organizations, and those have really gone away.
Hmm
And sports kind of brings that back. Church is not what it was in some
Mhm.
places.
hmm
But that you know, that community is really, really strong. It's like,
Mhm.
you know, I always say that, you know, there aren't a lot of campfires where we all gather anymore,
hmm
and there's so much fractured stuff. What you watch and I watch is probably what we're served is very
Mhm.
different. So, you know, our neighbors that we may disagree with on a bunch of stuff, we're
Mhm.
not seeing the same stuff.
Mhm.
And that's one of those areas where it's really crucial
Yeah.
and almost a part of America.
Mhm.
Feel that, like, I don't know if I agree with you on all the things, and maybe we're completely different. We don't have anything in common, but we're both Zag fans.
Exactly.
And
And you're
you
gonna hang
can't
out at a
stop-
bar or at a
Yeah.
game, and you're gonna cheer
It's
loud.
okay then, you know. And
Yeah.
we need more. We need more.
Yeah.
We're lucky in this town to have that because it isn't everywhere.
Yes. So spoiled. I was
Way spoiled.
I was over thrilled to hear that we were getting pro soccer teams.
Yeah.
Not that the teams, like the sports teams that we do have, they're often like their feeder teams or their minor leagues
Yeah.
and stuff. So we're
Yeah.
often seeing people at the beginning of their careers.
Right.
And so we play a crucial role in a person's understanding of if they want to make it their career, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like we get to show up and cheer them on and support them. I appreciate greatly. And that is a really funny also interview question that kind of led me to choosing Spokane. I had joked about, do you guys have a hockey team? And they were like, they laughed and they were like, we do have a hockey team. We have college and we have a minor league team. And I remember going to my first Chiefs game.
Yeah.
And I was feeling
they're
very
great.
homesick. I was feeling
Yeah.
very homesick. I was like, I'm so glad I get to
The
be at a
arena's
hockey game.
Great.
Yeah, and they're making a ton of improvements. I can't wait to
They
see.
are right now. They shut
Yeah.
it down for the summer.
I can't wait to see what kind of improvements are made. And I remember walking into the arena and I saw Lightning jerseys everywhere. So many Tampa Bay, and they were all Tyler Johnson
Tyler
jerseys.
Johnson.
And I got really emotional because I was like, I was feeling so homesick, and hockey was this thing that would remind me of being home. And it was like home found me there, that Tampa was there, that there was a Tampa presence. There were people who loved Tampa Bay Lightning hockey 3,200 miles away because of a Spokane athlete
Absolutely.
that ended up in Tampa.
Yeah.
And so it was really
So
kind
that-
of fun to
this-
find a little bit of home.
So this will make you really
Yeah.
kind of probably mad. But
Mhm.
a guy that used to work for us, Zach Bagman, amazing guy, works at Gonzaga. His parents are huge Chiefs hockey fans and they're friends of Tyler and his family. And he came to town
Mhm.
with the Stanley Cup, and Zach got to drive him around
Nice.
with the Stanley Cup.
You know, I missed out on that. I
How
got a
cool
call
is
when
that?
he was at Brick West, and
Yeah.
everyone was telling. I was getting
Oh,
phone
you-
calls and texts, and they were like, "Come on down, come on down to Brick West."
Why didn't
I
you
think I
go?
got it at like 9:30, and getting me
What are you
out
doing,
past 9
community
o'clock.
work and service, Gabby.
I think I was just way too tired to go.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, but
Last question. Last thing I want to talk about, besides your awesome tattoos, but we'll get to
thank
that. Is your connection to Fairchild Air Force Base?
yeah,
This is so cool to me.
which actually has something to do with hockey and the Chiefs, which is
It's
kind of
all-
funny.
it's all about hockey?
It's a great
It's
transition.
a chief promotion here.
Um,
They better
so
become
I
a
mean,
sponsor of this podcast.
yeah, being from Tampa has Florida has a lot of Air Force bases. I think at one
Yes.
point we had over 60, and now we have a few. I think we have at least three or four. But MacDill Air Force Base is in Tampa, is in the Bay Area, and I had always had a lot of. I have military family members. I'd always had a lot of friends that were serving at MacDill, and I was aware of like challenges that people who are serving face when you have to move around all the time, when you work a job that consumes a lot of your free time.
And that could take you
Yeah,
anywhere.
and
really.
take you anywhere. The building community is an incredibly difficult thing with it. Feeling like you belong to the community that you're stationed in is also a really challenging thing. If you're working all the time and when sometimes your work is taking you to, like, your deployments might be 6 months to a year or 3 months, or you're only coming to a city for 4 years and then you're being sent away to a new place. It's hard to feel like you ever have a place to call home or feel like you have a community that you felt like you belonged to beyond the walls, beyond the fences of the base. I was at a Chiefs game, and it was a playoffs game. And sitting down in the beer garden, which if you're over 21, that's the best seat in the house.
Yep.
Because you're going to be on the ice,
Right.
Ice level.
And there's beer.
Yeah, and there's beer. And the bartenders down there are always the sweetest humans. I absolutely adore the staff down
You're
there.
a beer tender.
Yeah.
Also.
So occasionally you'll find me behind a bar
Yes.
pouring beer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bartender.
Yes, bartending. That's how I afford all my tattoos. With the occasional bartending shift. And I was hanging out with friends. We were in the beer garden. There was a group of guys next to us. They were quoting Letterkenny. If you've seen Letterkenny, it's a really fun show to quote. Like there's some real zingers and really hilarious lines, and ended up chatting and very quickly found out they were in the Air Force. And from that, because
At
of our
Fairchild.
equal love,
Station
at Fairchild, because of our love for hockey, and I am always intrigued where'd you move from? Where'd you come from? Like, why do you like Spokane? Because for me, when I moved here, I love Spokane wholeheartedly, and I'm so glad I stayed. It might be surprising to hear that when I first moved here, I thought I had made like a mistake. It took a really long time to adjust here.
How did you? It is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard for people.
Yeah, culturally couldn't have picked a very different place. East
Geographically.
Coast versus West Coast
Everything.
geographically, like the way that people make friends and build community. Couldn't have picked a more opposite way. So I had to adjust to how people interacted with one another. People built community. The friends, I was working at a university.
Of your community engagement skills. big
Yeah,
time.
my ability to adapt like to a new like cultural expectations and community expectations. And Spokane, I think, is a place that people I experience a higher concentration of people that choose to stay here their whole lives.
Yes.
And so those communities are very tight knit.
Yeah.
I remember hearing people are like, I'm friends with the same people I went to elementary school with, and I was like, I could not fathom, like in a million years.
Oh yeah, no.
Being friends with
your
the
grade
people I went to
school
school with.
friends, Really,
Yeah.
you grew up with your grade school
Right.
friends are probably the ones that stay with you.
Yeah.
Some of the most.
It was really hard finding friends, and I was 21. I was 21 to 23 when I was doing my AmeriCorps service terms, and those are the age of the college students I was working with. So they would have been my friends, but I was also their supervisor.
Yeah.
And there was a
there's
weird
line
power
on that.
imbalance. And
Yeah,
so it was
yeah.
like this understanding of
There's a line.
you can't be besties with like the students that you're
No.
mentoring and working
Right,
with.
Sure.
So that created its own challenges. I was able to find a few locals that took me in as a friend, and I expanded my community, the two pockets of the community. It took me a while. It took me a couple years to feel like I belonged in Spokane.
Yep. Stick it out.
Yeah, and I was like, I can do anything for 3 years minimum. I always tell myself I can do anything for 3 years, and then I'll allow myself to reevaluate if it's right for me anymore after that.
Fair.
And I chose to stay, and I'm so glad I did. Somehow 2 years turned into 11 now. And it's wild to think that I've been here for 11 years. It's passed by. But because of that, because of how much I struggled with finding a sense of belonging in Spokane the first 2 years I was here, I kind of made it my personal mission to never let anyone I ever interacted with that was new here experience the same kind of struggles that I experienced the first 2 years.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn a whole bunch about the community so I could help people. Like, what do you love doing? How can I direct you into those spaces where those spaces are so you can find community and you don't have to worry about? And for people in the Air Force, they're working so much. There's, I think, a lot of interdependency that when you're working so much with other people, often your only friends are your coworkers, your colleagues. Yeah. So the Air Force community is a very tight-knit community.
Right. And it's a bit isolated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The nature of the work is isolating.
Yeah. There's a fence around it with guards and guns.
And they don't know how long they're going to be there. So there's, I think maybe even an internal, is it worth it to try and connect with the community if I think I'm going to have to move in a couple of years. And so I befriended a group of pilots, and it became very clear to them that I was a very good Spokane guide.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
They're like, we always needed a civilian friend, like.
That's great.
And through that, I was able to meet and connect with, these were pilots in the 97th. Air refueling, and so they were flying the KC-135s, and so I befriended a lot of people in the 97th just through trying to help them plug. Like, it ranged from telling them just where the best restaurants, where to eat, where are the best happy hours, where are the best like family activities, where are the best concerts, where to go on a Friday night, how to plan a date in town. I helped a lot of friends, like, what kind of vibe are you going for? Let me recommend an activity in a restaurant, kind of thing. Just trying to be helpful and help them realize that Spokane was a really wonderful community to belong to.
And you got to discover it yourself.
Yeah. From my experience and from what Spokanites showed me.
Yeah.
I would say all of my experiences in Spokane aren't just because I sought them out. It's because other people welcomed me into their communities.
That's great.
And it took me a while to figure out what pockets of the community I belonged to, or that I felt like I belonged the most to, or could contribute the most
and
to.
You found those.
Yeah, the creative community here, the art community. I was involved with Terrain as their volunteer coordinator for 5 years. I started out volunteering with them, and then eventually their volunteer coordinator stepped down, and I had the capacity to step into that role because I love volunteer coordination. I'm not an artist, but like, the artist had a need that I could meet. And I think that's one of the things also, that even if you're passionate about something, if you don't inherently contribute to it in a traditional manner, like, I don't consider myself an artist. I consider myself a gallery for artists.
Yeah, you are.
I get the honor of being a walking gallery for some of Spokane's most talented tattoo artists.
That's so cool.
And there are spaces in the community that need what you have. That need your passion, that need your love or your curiosity about that community. There's a way to get plugged in. And so when interacting with the Air Force folks, like trying to plug them into the community, it feels simple to be like, go to this restaurant, check out this event, cool thing. Yeah, and then I found out about this program that they actually have on base, which is the Honorary Commander Program. And it is for civic leaders and community leaders that are curious and want to learn about Fairchild's mission, the Air Force's mission, and how Spokane can better support. So how can these Spokane leaders, how can county leaders, how can statewide leaders, and it's leaders across all industries, healthcare, government, education, entertainment, hospitality, even politicians as well. How can these leaders be conscious as they're making decisions about how a community is developed and built? What does it mean to also consider the military base that occupies the community and what they need?
And it's probably the largest employer.
And how to advocate. Yeah. And so it's like, how do community leaders understand more about the needs of the Air Force Base and the airmen and those serving and their families?
Yeah.
and how can they be more a part of the Spokane community as well?
Cool.
And what does encouraging that look like? And the person, the captain of the public affairs office, reached out to me, and she's like, in addition to wanting to understand who you'd recommend that we reach out to and ask to be an honorary commander and go through the process, she was like, you already kind of do that. Like
you're embodying it.
You're already doing that for the 97th. So would you like an official title, like, to do that? Do you want to be an honorary commander? And so that I went through the application process, and last September, so September 2023, I was paired with the squadron that I get to be the honorary commander for, and that's the 92nd Operations Support Squadron.
That's amazing.
And so there are that squadron is the one who's doing so much of the safety checks. They're located on 7 different locations on base. It's overwhelming and
so people
so
can
critically
actually
important.
learn about
Yes.
Fairchild
Mm-hmm.
through
Yeah.
this program.
Absolutely.
And should.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And
That was
it's been
even-
really rewarding.
Oh, for sure. So Commander Gabby.
No. I don't nearly put in
I like the sound of
the
that. I like
sheer amount of work, tenacity of the people that I get the opportunity to. Yeah.
Commander Gabby's pretty cool.
It's been an incredibly wonderful and rewarding experience. Deeply educational. I've unlearned a lot of maybe opinions that I had about military.
Yeah.
Sure. And
That's gotta
I've
be
gotten
helpful.
I've gotten the opportunity to unlearn and relearn, and I mean,
And they
one of the
learned
biggest
about you
yeah,
probably too.
yeah, and one of the biggest I think takeaways for me that this whole experience has been in the 8 months that I've gotten to be a part of it is it is certainly a privilege that I don't have to daily and fully understand, like, the amount of work that Fairchild puts into keeping our community safe and keeping this region safe and this country safe, and my lack of awareness, my prior
This
lack of
world
awareness
safe,
of
honestly.
that
Yeah.
was kind of one of those, like, ignorance is bliss kind of
Yeah,
thing. I was very
that's
ignorant
true.
to the mission
Yeah.
of the Air Force, and I've had a significant, wonderful opportunity to learn more about it and to truly learn about all of what they go through, what the kind of experiences. They took us on, the honorary commanders, on a trip. We went to Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, J-Bear for short, up in Anchorage a couple weeks ago.
What?
They put all the honorary commanders, like, we did a mock deployment, so we had to go through all the same steps that any of the people at Fairchild go through when they're deploying, where you have to go around to all these stations, write a will, go through, like, all the services that you'll need, and what it means to, like, pack up your things and get sent somewhere for a while. And so we did a mock deployment and to experience, like, what folks go through when they're deploying. And then they brought us to J-Bear, and the wonderful guests, or not guests, but the folks at J-Bear were wonderful to us as guests and helping us understand what they do and how they protect Alaska and the Arctic Circle and what all the work that goes into that. And so we learned about a different base and what their mission is and how it ties into Fairchild as their main refuelers, the KC-135s, and how they are the lifeblood for a lot of the planes that are flying all around.
Yeah, critical.
So it's been a deeply rewarding experience. It's still very fresh to me. It's an opportunity that I get to do for 3 years. It's a 3-year commitment, and it's been absolutely wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, silent music. Wait, what is this?
Yeah.
This is such a cool.
I'm really excited. So I don't know when this episode's going to come out, because it is next Saturday.
When this comes out, it's probably will have already happened, but maybe next year. But anyway, still, tell me about this as we close this.
Yes. Well, so this is, I'm trying not to, girl boss too close to the sun, because I only plan to do one of these. So my hope is that if this goes very well and that the community loves it, that someone else will take this up as a recurring thing. Because I don't know if I have the capacity to make this a recurring thing. But with the Expo 50th anniversary,
Expo 74.
They put an all-call, the planning committee of the Expo 50th anniversary celebrations, their committee put kind of an all-call out to events, like, what kind of community events would you like to see? And I thought, well, it's the 70s. That's disco, right?
74, man.
Like disco has to be at like the forefront of an event, at least one of the events. I started asking around and I'm like, has anyone ever done really like a silent disco, like a citywide one or just a large scale? And I had heard rumblings about how Gonzaga's held them for students, like new student orientations and stuff, or like the universities have kind of done. So silent
describe
disco, yeah, maybe people have happened upon them before and really been like, what are those silly people doing over there, kind of thing. You'll see people with headphones on,
Right.
so there's no music. You can't hear it.
hear
There's
the
no
music.
music playing out, but the people
They're
with the
hearing it.
headphones, yeah, they're kind of dancing around with headphones, doing that, having a good old time. And the headphones have about 3 channels on them, and so
you get a headset.
get a headset. And so yeah, if folks decide to show up to the Expo Silent Disco, which they granted, turns out there wasn't any silent disco events happening or disco events, and so I was like, well, I wanna throw a silent disco. This sounds fun. Why not do that? Let's shut down a street downtown and have people dancing in the street.
With their headphones on.
Exactly. So I applied for the event and they loved it, and so I get the opportunity to throw a silent
So
disco.
how do you think it's going to turn out?
I hope it goes really well.
Are you
There was
excited?
yes, there was strategy in there's a lot of strategy in why it's happening on the day that it's happening. So I'm shutting down Wall Street downtown
Yes,
in between
right.
Flat Stick and Urban
Yeah,
Outfitters.
yes.
Because that road is built for like festivals.
right.
They want to throw
That's right.
events down there.
Yep.
And I'm doing it on the day that Terrain is hosting Bazaar,
Yeah,
which is where they
right.
shut down the whole main,
That's right.
in front of
That's
the
where
mall.
Bazaar,
Yeah.
it's there too.
And so that is going to be happening all day. And in my years of volunteering at Bazaar, I had always noticed that the event would go until 8 p.m., but around 5 o'clock, participation in the amount of the crowd would significantly drop.
Sure.
And so, in addition to wanting to throw a silent disco, I was like, our Terrain staff members, Jackie and Ginger, who are absolutely wonderful
Ginger's
folks.
amazing.
We were talking about like, well, when could we do it? And the idea came up of like, well, Bazaar's happening. Could it be an outdoor thing? Because venue rentals are not cheap around
No,
here,
they're not.
and we're significantly out of my budget. And so they were like, well, we're having Bazaar, and if it could be outside, like it could just be a part of the event. And I think there was like a lot of intentionality, and I was so grateful that they offered that, because I was like, I think there's a lot of intentionality around
Totally.
throwing an event that happens at night
Yeah.
to hopefully keep more people out supporting the
right.
artists.
And
Also
commerce.
yeah. And so keeping people downtown, and that's obviously a critique we hear a lot about. Oh, I don't want to go downtown, it doesn't feel safe. And I'm like, have you spent any time downtown?
Yes, it does.
It's always hopping downtown.
Yeah, totally.
And so it's like kind of supporting that and challenging that notion of downtown not being a safe place, like wanting to have people downtown enjoying themselves. And
Downtown's
so,
safe when people are down there.
Yeah. And so having we're gonna be down there. DJ Spicy Ketchup is gonna be he's got 3 channels on those headphones. Yeah.
Nick approves over
Yeah.
there.
He we'll have 3 channels, and so I gave the parameters of it. One channel's gotta be 70s.
Oh yeah.
One channel's gotta be modern, and then I was like, you can have fun with the 3rd channel.
Oh boy.
If you want to do mashups, if you want to do other decades of music, like whatever you think people are gonna groove to. And so I'm really
gonna be
excited. It's
amazing.
I think there's something intriguing.
That so fits your
Yeah.
love of music too.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that
And
you're
we don't
about.
violate any noise ordinances.
So you just have till 11 and it'll be okay. There won't be
And I
money.
think there will be something intriguing if you walk by a bunch of people just dancing with headphones on. You're gonna be maybe incentivized to go ask what it's about.
That's so cool. Well, all
Yeah.
the stuff that I mean, I know so many people that I've grown up with and lived here forever, and Spokane is a big part of their life. But I don't know anybody that embraces it, loves it, is as involved with it, that knows what's going on, that makes stuff happen.
Mm-hmm.
But you, who didn't grow up here, you know, like that's so. I just think we're just damn lucky to have
Thank
you.
you. I think
doing
it's
what
because
you do.
Spokane embraced me. I didn't know what Spokane was going to be when I moved out here. I had no idea. I'd never been to the Pacific Northwest, and I think that it's a reflection of what Spokane is to people.
Yeah,
I get to reflect.
that's cool.
I get to spend.
So
reflecting.
speaking of that, last question: if you could wave your magic
Yeah.
wand for the future of this place, what would you do? And it can be somebody to take over the silent disco.
You're good. I would. There's two things I'm really passionate about, which is a more robust embracing of the arts. That community wide, there's truly like an appreciation of how art makes a place wonderful to live.
Yep.
We have organizations that are doing so much work to convince the community and to support the artists in doing that.
Yep.
I would absolutely love to see just an overwhelming, robust embracing of like art as a way of community development, which it's a powerful tool for that. I think Spokane might be playing a little bit of catch up on it, and that's not anything to do with the organizations that absolutely bust their butts.
Right.
It's about the barriers that they face. I would like to see those barriers be eliminated.
That would be cool.
And I want to see more unique housing.
Yes.
I think the solving of our housing crisis
Cannot be a single
is
family
in
home
an
anymore.
acceptance of I personally want shipping containers as a home.
Mm.
I would like shipping container homes. I know someone up in Chihuahua that like
Yep.
outfits them and
course,
stuff. So
yeah.
I would like to see more creative housing
Yeah.
as a means. I think that we're gonna see one of the things I talk about a lot is we have a generation that the boomers, that that generation, they're currently occupying a lot of assisted living facilities or retirement homes. There is no generation after that meets the numbers that they do.
Right.
So we're going to see a lot of those buildings go empty.
Yep.
How can we bring back the importance of multi-generational housing before
Yep.
they go empty?
Yep.
Allowing college students to move into these vacant apartments. So you have retirement communities, you have college students living together, or young adults, or young professionals.
This is where we met.
Yeah.
Was Excelsior, right?
Yeah.
And their plan for what they want to do in Indian Trail is sort of this new way of rethinking how a neighborhood is,
Exactly.
how a village is, how a place where we all live is so cool. I'm glad you're thinking that way. I think we have to. We don't have a choice anyway.
Yeah.
And why not make it cool? I
If
mean,
you get creative,
yeah,
and it addresses a lot of other issues.
the other part of everything that you do, especially in your day job, is you do need volunteers, and you could use people to volunteer. How do they do that?
Get involved in your neighborhood council if that's where you'd like to start. One, there's over 270 nonprofits in the Spokane community.
Okay.
So anything that interests anyone, you could probably find a nonprofit to support it. And the best way to figure out where those nonprofits are, maybe neighborhood council isn't where you want to get started. Maybe you have a specific topic you want to get involved in. Volunteer Spokane, which is where nonprofits post a lot of volunteering opportunities, and they have profiles. So you can view what all of those nonprofits are in the community and how to get plugged in with them by going on volunteerspokane.org. If you're a college student, reach out to your community engagement offices in your universities and colleges. If you're a student, I got involved at a very young age. There hopefully are some student volunteer organizations or clubs or orgs at K through 12 level that can get you plugged in to community service projects.
And how do you find your neighborhood council?
Ooh, go on the city website, SpokaneCity.org /neighborhoods, and that should pull you up. What it's going to do is pull you up to our main page, and you can scroll down and click Find My Neighborhood, and we have a really cool map, a GIS map, where you can type in your address, and it will show you what neighborhood you live in.
And that'll tell you when the event's are.
Yeah, on that same page, you can scroll down and pull up the neighborhood council page, and it'll tell you who to contact, when they meet.
Go check it out.
Yeah,
Go see
absolutely.
one and see what it's like. I know. I've been to a few just because of reasons, but when I went and met you, I was like, this is really so, and this is what it's all.
Yeah.
This is like where everything should start and does, and we aren't as involved as we should.
You also showed up on a really busy day for that neighborhood. The Balboa South Indian Trail has been sustained by 3 people over the last handful of years. 3 people putting in a lot of work. That was a really big turnout.
And it wasn't a big turnout.
And I can tell you that, for example, them, along with so many of our other neighborhoods, really do need help. They need more residents getting involved.
Yeah.
And you don't have to come in and be the chair. You don't have to come in and take an officer position.
Just show up.
Yeah, just show up and talk about what you're passionate about, and there's probably something to get you plugged into. And so there's an opportunity for anyone to get involved in the neighborhood council system. And I think the best way to like transform your community is to get to play an active role in it. And the neighborhood councils decide a lot of stuff that impacts residents on a daily basis.
They do.
They get to decide where millions of dollars and have a say in where millions of dollars in the city go. They get to decide like, yeah. Oh, you're good. But yeah.
No worries.
Oh, you're good.
No, we're good. Well, thank you.
This is our. This camera's alive.
Okay.
Oh yeah. You're good.
Oh, we're okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I hope more people do that. And Commander Gabby, thank you for bringing snacks.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story.
Thanks for just all the joy you bring.
Yeah. Thank you.
MIP Podcast was filmed at the studio of Corner Booth Media. Please sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere podcasts can be found.
We'd love it if you'd rate, review, and subscribe to help our podcast grow. Be good to yourself and stay interesting.